As we all are aware, the aftermath of the ENDSARS protests that took place in several parts of the country in October 2020 led to the vandalization of private and public assets, which includes business houses, shopping malls, banks, and police stations. Many small and small-scale businesses that were affected have struggled to resume full business activities. In addition, the provision of security, which is essential to the conduct of business activities, has been greatly hampered due to the damage to 44 police stations across the country. If left unattended, this situation could undermine confidence in our economy and derail the efforts of the government in enabling faster recovery of the Nigerian economy following the impact of COVID-19. As a result, the Bankers Committee and critical stakeholders in the private sector, under the auspices of the COVID Alliance, held a series of meetings towards developing measures that will support government's efforts in rebuilding confidence in our nation's economy. Some of the measures agreed upon by the COVID Alliance include: 1. Banks and financial institutions will be required to extend relief through concessionary loans, and we mean very, very concessionary loans, to affected businesses and firms so they can rebuild and restock their stores and continue to conduct their business activities. This will be by way of loans, I repeat. Those details will also be released through the Bankers Committee in due course. 2. COVID has committed to fully rehabilitate all the 44 damaged and destroyed police stations nationwide in a bid to restore provision of security in affected locations, in the affected police stations. We have dimensioned the cost of these 44 police stations. They will be rebuilt, and all the facilities that were destroyed and even more will be installed in these police stations to ensure, to see to it that they meet required modern standards. 3. To further strengthen the security apparatus in the country, COVID has committed to provide over 100 billion naira to procure equipment and gadgets for the Nigerian police over the next 2 years as our contribution to fully modernize the Nigerian police. 4. Our preliminary analysis indicates that unemployment, particularly among the youth, was a critical factor behind the unrest. As a result, COVID has committed to creating a high-impact youth development program that will provide technical and vocational education to cover 4 million Nigerian youths over the next 5 years. Like you know, it's not everybody that passed out of secondary school that had the opportunity to go into the university or polytechnics. Some of them, because they are unable to get into universities, they just wander into other forms of activities, and unfortunately some of them may have derailed into some of these issues that resulted in the crisis, looting all around the country. And we feel they should not be left the way they are. Before now, Nigeria had technical colleges. Nigeria had vocational centers where people acquire skills in various vocations, whether it is plumbing, whether it is mechanic, whether it is carpentry, or sewing, what we call fashion design today, or even in POP designs and the rest of them. You all know, today when we build houses, rather than use our young Nigerians, where we go to foreign countries and hire them to do plumbing, electrical work for us. What we do by going to other countries to even bring in plumbers, electricians, or people who do POP, what we do again is that we allow those countries to get employment whereas our people remain unemployed. Students will be trained on craft work, plumbing, masonry, carpentry, and other artisanal related skills for which sufficient demand exists in Nigeria. Over 150 billion is expected to be deployed towards the setup and implementation of the Youth Development Program, which will be available at select training centers across the country. 5. Selected students on conclusion of the program will be certified by the appropriate standards board and will be eligible to receive concessionary loans again to support their entrepreneurial pursuits. So far, over 25 billion naira will be domiciled in a fund to support these entrepreneurial pursuits, which would also include acquisition of related equipment to conduct business activities. The ultimate objective of this is to provide our young Nigerians with employable skills sets that will enable them to live a gainful life. We believe this initiative can lead to the creation of over 4 million jobs over the next 5 years. 6. For the out-of-school graduates that possess certain entrepreneurial skills, CACOVI will be working with the Bankers Committee to complete the Creative Center at the National Arts Theatre area of Lagos in 4 select areas, namely ICT and software design and development, fashion, music, and movies. This project is expected to cost the Bankers Committee over 40 billion naira. Given the impact that the unrest has had on the conduct of business activities, members of the CACOVID have committed to develop a business continuity plan that will enable businesses and firms to share timely information and resources to forestall physical or cyber attacks which could derail the smooth functioning of business activities in the country. Details of all the support stated above will be released in due course to Nigerians. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, these efforts represent some of the essential steps that are important in rebuilding trust and preventing future unrest within our communities. It will also complement government's efforts aimed at creating jobs for our youth and in strengthening the security apparatus in the country. More importantly, it will also prevent the challenges which have emanated from the protest from affecting the long-term growth prospects of households and businesses in the country. We know that the state, just like we did with the isolation centers, we see the state governors and governments as our closest link to the people in our rural communities or those who are vulnerable in our society. And that was why we did what we did, by passing on, just like we did in isolation centers and the medical supplies, we passed on the food palliatives to them. And I repeat, this program started in March, but the program, that was the first phase, but what we did at the first instance was the isolation centers, medical supplies. The food palliatives aspect came on later. And indeed, I think we started contemplating food sometime around May. And like some of you may know, we did not go to the open market to procure food supplies. We went directly to the manufacturers, some of whom are members of the CACOVID, to procure these materials so that the impact does not, if we go into the market, the price does not escalate skyrocket out of our control. We procured those things, those food items, I would guess sometime around end of July into August. And we started. The truth again is that we had told them that they will collect them in warehouses until we fully deliver the items in each of the states. So some of them were waiting, right? for the whole consignment to be received in those designated warehouses before the ENDSARS protest broke out. That was what happened. And unfortunately, as a result of that, those food that were meant for the vulnerable, those in our very rural communities, unfortunately have not reached those rural communities.
Even if you are not building a new house, you have some repairs. So all what you need to do sometimes is just you go and write your name, even by a roundabout, that okay, if you are looking for a plumber, this is. But we want to now make sure that we have a database so that you just don't go and call somebody that happens to be an armed robber to come into your house or whatever. So you can go into that data and now get somebody and say, okay, fine, I'm looking for an electrician. We all have repairs every day. I mean, even in my own house, I have repairs every day. So you can now know who to contact, and that person can now come and do the repairs, of your house. And what we are going to do is that we're going a little bit beyond that. We are now providing them with money to buy the tools to be able to. So as soon as they get the training, which is free, which we are paying for, then they have a guaranteed jobs. And let me tell you a little bit like what we are doing. We have almost about now 30,000. We are going to 30,000 workers at our Lekki site, which we are going to now, go up to 50. 25 to 28% maximum will be foreign workers. The rest will be Nigerians, which they will be trained as we are going through these buildings. I mean, the construction, the electrical, the instrumentation, the fabrication, the welding. So by the time that we finish, we are going to have a lot of people who are already trained on the job.
Every transformation process will come with its own pain and hitches. CACOVID, right from inception, has sought to basically help to relieve the issues that come with COVID-19 and also to protect the livelihoods of people. Now, obviously, in that process, there will be hitches from time to time, sometimes perceived, but hopefully, as we continue to share more information with the press, people will have a clear picture of all we've tried to do. But I think for me, the most important thing, lifting up from what others have said, has to do with issues of employment and unemployment. COVID, whether you like to believe it or not, locking people for several months has in itself created several problems internally, and of course the employment that people have. The governor in his speech made it very clear. Two things are going to happen. One is for those who are graduates who are seeking funding to start a business, and the second is for those who don't have formal education or who don't have a university degree, who need dignified jobs. Okay, so you can call them artisans, but as far as we're concerned, they are dignified jobs in themselves, because some of these jobs can be exported. Some of these jobs must be such as to carry dignity for these people and for them to see the value that they're creating and sharing with the entire environment. The central bank has created an initiative which is for the creative industry, and it is such a shame that most people have not come to take advantage of all of those things. Some banks are processing it. What I'll just say to young people who are seeking funding to start their own respective businesses, please reach out to your banks. Somebody will support you. I think the banks have had people loud and clear. Reach out to your banks. Banks must support people to start doing what they need to do. There's been several announcements that have come from the central bank indicating their expectations of what banks should do in terms of supporting young people who have basically come out with university degrees. And I would just want to pledge and urge all people, young people who have those degrees, to reach out to their respective banks to try and see how they can get funding.